When the will was read, the air inside that mahogany-paneled room felt heavy. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound that dared move. I sat at the edge of the long table, hands trembling slightly, staring at the family lawyer as he went through the estate papers. My siblings, Evan and Clara, looked confident, like they already knew how this would go. Maybe they did. My mother had always treated me differently, but I convinced myself it was in my head. I thought I just wasn't as ambitious or as charming as my siblings. Evan had been her golden boy, the future of the family business. Clara, the perfect daughter who could do no wrong. And me? I was just there. The quiet one. The emotional one. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading the figures. To Evan and Clara, the estate bequeaths $25 million each, including the properties and company shares. He paused, turning another page. To Lila, $39,000. I didn't breathe for a moment. I thought maybe I misheard. $39,000? That couldn't be right. My siblings exchanged a look. One of those silent smirks that sting more than words ever could. I managed to whisper, "There must be some mistake." The lawyer shook his head solemnly. "Your mother's instructions were explicit." And that was it. No explicación. No caínis. Just a number that screamed I wasn't part of them. When the meeting ended, I walked out into the sunlight feeling hollow. Reporters had gathered outside. My family was prominent, the kind people whispered about. Cameras flashed, and someone asked how it felt to be the disinherited daughter. I kept walking, pretending I couldn't hear. Over the next few days, the internet tore me apart. Headlines called me the forgotten child and the emotional liability. My siblings made subtle statements about honoring our mother's wishes and keeping the family legacy strong. It was humiliating. But what cut deepest wasn't the money. It was the question that echoed in my mind. Why didn't she love me the same? I decided to clean out the small cottage my mother had left me. One she'd barely ever visited. It was a quiet place on the edge of the family estate, surrounded by old oak trees and wildflowers that had grown out of control. I spent days there, sorting through boxes of old clothes, letters, and photos. That's when I found it, a small, worn envelope tucked behind a picture frame. My name was written on it in my father's handwriting. My real father. He had died when I was 9. A car crash. Or so I'd been told. My mother rarely spoke about him afterward, almost as if she wanted to erase his existence. The letter must have been written before he passed. With trembling fingers, I opened it. My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, it means something kept me from saying goodbye. You deserve to know who you are, and the truth about our family. You are not like them, and that's not your fault. I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. There are secrets your mother swore to bury, but the truth has a way of finding light. Follow your instincts. You've always had my eyes, but not my blood. Look for the name in the blue box. That's where the truth begins. The blue box. I remembered seeing an old navy blue chest in my mother's office years ago. Something she guarded fiercely. She never let anyone near it. I thought it contained business papers, or maybe keepsakes. I couldn't stop thinking about the letter. Every night, I lay awake replaying it in my mind. Not my blood. What did he mean? Did my father know something before he died? Was my mother hiding more than I could imagine? 2 weeks later, I found myself sneaking into my mother's old office. Evan and Clara were too busy basking in their newfound wealth to care about the cottage. The room still smelled like her perfume, jasmine and something bitter underneath. The blue box sat on the shelf, dusty but locked. It took me nearly half an hour to find the key, hidden behind a drawer panel. When I opened it, I found documents, photos, and a DNA test. My name, my supposed father's name, and another man's. The results were clear. The man I thought was my father, the one who raised me, loved me, and left that letter, wasn't my biological father. And neither was the man my mother had been married to before him. The test showed a different name, Daniel Reeves. I had never heard of him, but the name appeared several times, on old letters, on financial statements, even in a photograph where my mother stood beside a man with kind eyes and a half-smile that looked hauntingly familiar. I dug deeper. Daniel Reeves had been an employee at my grandfather's company decades ago, a brilliant engineer from a modest background. My mother's family would never have approved of him. He disappeared around the time I was born. My heart pounded as realization settled in. My mother had lied about my paternity to protect her reputation. She married into wealth and power, while burying the truth about the man she truly loved. And when I was born, I was her living reminder of that secret. That's why she kept me at a distance. That's why she gave me $39,000, a price tag for her guilt. I spent the night reading every letter between her and Daniel. They were filled with longing, regret, and fear. My mother had been trapped between two worlds, love and ambition. In the end, she chose ambition. But one thing stood out. A final letter, dated the same week Daniel disappeared. If they find out about us, it won't end well. I'll go away like you asked, but please don't let her grow up thinking she's unwanted. Tell her the truth when she's ready. She never did. I sat there until sunrise, tears staining the pages. I wasn't angry anymore. I was devastated. Not because of the money, but because all I ever wanted was her love, and she couldn't give it without breaking her facade. I decided to share the truth publicly, not out of revenge, but to reclaim my identity. I uploaded a video telling my story, about being disinherited, about discovering my real father, about how secrets destroy families. I didn't name names, but people connected the dots. It went viral overnight. Comments poured in from strangers who had faced similar betrayals, who had grown up feeling like outsiders in their own homes. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. My siblings tried to discredit me, calling it a fantasy for sympathy. But then a journalist found records proving Daniel Reeves had been paid a large sum from our family trust the year he vanished. The evidence was undeniable. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. My siblings were no longer the polished heirs. They were part of the cover-up. But the victory wasn't sweet. I wasn't looking for fame or vengeance. I wanted peace. I sold the cottage, used that $39,000 to start a foundation in Daniel's name, one that supported kids raised in fractured families, kids who grew up believing they weren't enough. A month later, I visited his grave. Someone, maybe one of his old friends, had kept it tidy all these years. I placed the last letter he wrote to my mother there, whispering, "She never told me, but I found you anyway." As I turned to leave, the morning sun broke through the clouds, warm and golden. For the first time, I felt whole. Sometimes life's cruelest truths come wrapped as betrayals. But when the lies fall apart, what remains is the strength you never knew you had. They said I wasn't worth more than $39,000. But now I know my worth isn't in money. It's in the truth that set me free.